Cruise news time. Well, we got Norwegian Cruise Line doubling down, and at the same time, Royal Caribbean, well, they're opening up. Let's talk about it. Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to Lido, Loca. I'm your host, Tony, here with the latest cruise news updates. Well, let's clear up some questions from the last few videos. I've been getting a lot of questions in the comments. Tony, tell us what insurance we should pick. Should we pick the cruise line insurance? Should we take the third-party insurance? What should we do about insurance? Look, I don't have the expertise, and I am not willing to lead you astray. So I can only tell you what I do. These are my comments on insurance. Primarily, for most of the cruises that we've gone on, we've used a third-party insurer, and they're called Allianz, A-L-L-I-A-N-Z. Now, I've heard in subsequent days that it's a French company, and that may be pronounced Allianz. Allianz. Either way, French, U.S., A-L-L-I-A-N-Z. What I do is I go over there and I've added up all my costs. What it's going to cost for me to stay in the hotel, what it's going to cost for me to fly if I have to fly, what the cruise cost. And they're going to ask you that cost. And so you provide your age, you provide your cost, and then they spit out some quotes. And I'm always looking for medical coverage in a foreign country, right? Medical coverage, and I'm looking for emergency evacuation. I usually do that a week or two before my cruise. There are some circumstances, though, where you want to book your insurance as soon as possible. If you're looking for a policy that covers cancellation anytime, if you want to cancel for any reason, there is insurance for that. It's more expensive, and you have to book that right at the beginning when you put the first money into your cruise. So if you want some sort of insurance that's going to allow you to cancel at any time and get most of your money back, you've got to get cancel anytime insurance. You have to do that pretty close to when you book your cruise. Another thing that you have to do pretty close to when you book your cruise is if you have pre-existing medical conditions and you want that covered under the insurance, most insurance will only allow you to get pre-existing medical conditions covered when you book that right at the time that you book your cruise. Should you take the cruise line insurance? Should you book third party? It's completely up to you. I know people that like to book the cruise line. I know people that like to book the third party. I'm assuming you could book both and get some double coverage in some circumstances. For us, we've always looked at both, but we found that the third party option, at least for us, it was less expensive and it felt like it covered more. However, there's some compelling reasons to choose the cruise line insurance, especially like if you book your flights through them. You know, you got to do the research. So that's I can't really be prescriptive. Again, I'm not an insurance expert. I don't want to give out bad advice. Somebody take my advice and have a bad time. And so this one, I've got to push it back on you. There's also like a clearinghouse website. I believe it's called insuremytrip.com. You can put in what you're trying to insure, and they're going to give you quotes from multiple places. I haven't used it. I believe that's true. And then when it comes to Allianz or Alliance, I've never filed a claim, so I don't know what that's like, but I have seen in the comments people saying they filed a claim and it was good. So as a community, we can work together on this, but I don't have a definitive recommendation on insurance. We got to work on this one ourselves, but hopefully that's enough information to get you started, enough information to get you going. Secondly, how is the test free for COVID? Look, I don't know. I haven't done it. So at one point I said I think my test is going to cost $130. A lot of people said you can get a free test. Go onto the website for CVS and Walgreens, you can get a free test. And so I did that. I went on the website for CVS. They asked very specifically, why are you getting a test? And I said, I'm getting a test because I'm traveling. After I said that, there was a little box there that said tests are free, but we would like your insurance information. And this was true when I got like my vaccine or whatever. Vaccines are free, but we would like your health information. I think on the back end, these pharmacies are filing these with the insurance. There is some government program out there. Again, not an expert on this. So I can't definitively say where you live, if they're a free COVID test. I don't even know if mine are free or not. I'm assuming after I get through the process, if they file it with my insurance and my insurance rejects it for travel, then I would have to pay for it. This is what I would do. Just assume you're going to have to pay $150 per person for a COVID test and then be pleasantly surprised if you can get it for free. That would probably be the best way to level set your expectations. If you're going to book a cruise right now, just bake like $300 extra in for COVID tests and then try to find a way not to have to pay that $300 by being honest. Don't go and lie while you're trying to get your COVID test. But I'm just saying, probably if you want to, feel comfortable, just assume that you have to pay for it. But look, just go, like I went to CVS, I went to Walgreens, and see what happens. How about that? I will have to take a test before I go to Alaska, and I will let you guys know how that process worked, whether it cost me any money or not. But there you go. But feel free to continue that conversation in the comments over insurance, over these tests. Again, you're getting a lot of information from a lot of strangers that you don't know, so take that with a grain of salt. And, you know, same thing with any bit of information I give you. You got to take it with a grain of salt. I feel like I do a good job with the information, but I'm not beyond making a mistake. So there you go. That's the disclaimer about the info that you're getting out of the comments. All right, let's jump into the cruise news. Let's first start with Norwegian Cruise Line. I said Norwegian Cruise Line doubling down. That's exactly what is happening. They are extending their vaccine mandate until the end of the year. If you're going to cruise on Norwegian Cruise Line between now and the rest of 2021, you have to be 100% vaccinated, no exceptions. Let me read the statement from Norwegian Cruise Line. Norwegian Cruise Line spokesman says this: under the guidance of globally recognized public health experts and to prioritize the health and safety of our guests, crew, and the communities we visit, we have decided to extend guest vaccination requirements for all sailings through December the 31st, 2021. Guests who are not old enough to be vaccinated will not be allowed on these sailings. However, we eagerly await an expansion of the age criteria for vaccinations by the U.S. Food and Drug Administration so we can once again welcome these guests back on board. That whole statement right there is to address Norwegian Cruise Line's approach to families who want to cruise. What Norwegian Cruise Line is saying right there, up until at least the end of the year, until there is an option for people that are younger than 12 to be vaccinated, they will not have a spot on Norwegian Cruise Line's ships, and so that could impact families. Interesting, Norwegian Cruise Line is still sticking with some onboard health protocols that we've seen other cruise lines change recently as the Delta variant has increased. If you go cruising on Norwegian Cruise Line right now, mask-free cruising, no social distancing, no capacity restrictions, no restrictions on shore excursions, and all restaurants and experiences are open. They believe this is their path to safer cruising. So these are the protocols that they're using right now. Again, they just kicked off sailing out of Florida with the Norwegian Gem this past week, and so far so good, but we'll have to see if anything goes awry with those sailings, if these protocols will change. But people that are on the Gem right now are cruising pretty much as normal. So Norwegian Cruise Line extending the vaccine mandate until the end of the year. Now moving on, I have an interesting story about transparency. Transparency in the cruise industry coming out of Royal Caribbean International. Before I get there, let me quickly invite you to subscribe. If you'd like to stay up to date with everything that's going on in cruising, please consider subscribing with the notification bell on. It doesn't cost anything. It helps us out a lot. Look, we're trying to get to 1 million subscribers. Would you be one of those numbers? Again, the benefit to you is you're part of the notification squad. When these new videos drop, you're going to get a little message that there's some cruise news to watch. So please be a part of that gang by hitting the subscribe button. Thank you in advance. So transparency, it's an interesting time. Let's talk about the context that the cruise industry finds itself in. The cruise industry, like maybe no other industry I've ever seen, is constantly under the microscope. Even before COVID, the cruise industry constantly under the microscope. There's a lot of cruise fans, but there's also a lot of cruise not fans, naysayers, people that aren't into that cruise life, and those folks tend to keep cruising under the microscope. And right now, as cruising is restarted, that is true. Every bit of data that comes out about cruising is very consumed and spun and put out there for people to consume again. And it's interesting, depending where you live in that context, whether you're a cruise cheerleader, I would say that that's me, or whether you're always looking with a skeptical eye at the cruise company, or being a realist, or whatever way you want to label yourself. But again, there's a lot of people along that spectrum of who is watching cruising. And so think about that. If you're constantly under the microscope, have you ever been at a job where your boss is keeping an eye on you? Have you ever been in a situation where your peer was looking for a way to one-up you? Or even, you know, think about that if you've competed in athletics or anything like that. Any situation where the eye is on you, you may tend to be less forthcoming with information because you don't want that information to be used against you. You might only want to report where you have to report, where it's mandated that you report. And we see a little bit of that in the cruise space. And so this next story is very interesting to me because, you know what? Michael Bailey, the president of Royal Caribbean International, the leader over there, he said, let's just go a different way. Let me just throw out some information. Let me answer some frequent questions that I'm seeing, and we'll go at it like that. So I want to share with you this Facebook post by Michael Bailey. We can glean a lot from it. I'm going to pull it up. We'll work through it, and I'll give a little commentary at the end. Please stay here along with me. Now, again, in the hierarchy of things, Michael Bailey is the president of Royal Caribbean International. Royal Caribbean International, a cruise line, a part of the Royal Caribbean Group, and their leader there is Richard Fain. So Richard Fain, like Michael Bailey's boss. Okay, so here's the post from Michael Bailey, posted on August the 16th. So, as the clock ticks and time passes, we continue the journey through the ups and downs and twists and turns of what feels like the endless pandemic. Can we get an amen? Absolutely, Michael Bailey. We know, we're with you. We're with you on that. Today, Quantum, Adventure, Freedom, Anthem, Jewel, Serenade, Odyssey, Allure, Ovation, Symphony, Independence, and Harmony of the Seas are all sailing. Did he miss one? Maybe he had a list. And by the end of August, Mariner of the Seas will also be sailing. 13 of our 26 ship fleet back sailing the seas. Exclamation point, well deserved there. All of our ships started operating with reduced capacity, either by government mandate, for example, Singapore and Southampton, or through voluntary caps we placed on ourselves that range from 30 to 50%. As we move month by month, we will be increasing our capacity ship by ship. That's a super common question that I get all the time. What capacity are these cruise lines going at? That's not a published number a lot of the times. You'll hear it on the back end, oh, this ship sailed with this much. The cruise line's not necessarily forthcoming with their capacity, but I like the fact that Michael Bailey did here. And he says very clearly, there's a couple governments, Singapore, the UK, that says they have to sail at a certain capacity, but in situations where they've been able to self-regulate, they've decided to start small and work their way up to see how it goes, 30% to 50%. He goes on to talk about vaccination. All of our crew are fully vaccinated, and each ship sails with a total onboard vaccinated community ranging from 90 to 97%. The overall majority of the unvaccinated guests are the kids not eligible for the vaccine. A lot of people are pushing, why didn't Royal go higher with their vaccine? I would say Royal is completely opposite to Norwegian Cruise Line's approach. Norwegian saying, look, kids can't get the vaccine. So sad. We'll just go without kids for right now. We feel like that's the safest. Royal said, look, cruising is about cruising with kids. And so what can we do to allow kids on board? They followed the test sailing protocols so that they could sail with more unvaccinated guests. And he says right here that they're doing about 90% vaccinated, and they are really targeting kids to be the only unvaccinated group on their cruise ship. He moves on to talk about COVID. Do we have COVID positive guests and crew? Yes. He says it plainly. Yes. As all guests are required to be tested before boarding, regardless of vaccination status, we typically have 2 to 10 guests a week out of the thousands of guests boarding 12 ships who do not board because they test positive. So there you go. You've got 2 to 10 guests a week not getting on the cruise ship out of thousands of guests boarding 12 ships. Again, I really like the transparency of this. Do we have COVID positive guests on board? Yes. How many guests are positive? Typically 1 or 2 of 1,000 plus guests per week on the ships. So with a 90+% vaccinated cruise ship where everybody has been tested before they get on the cruise ship, they're saying, yes, we still have positive cases, 1 or 2 out of 1,000. So that's a very small number, but I'm sure there's people out there, and I see it in the comments, well, if you've done the testing, if you've got a high vaccination standard, how can this be? So he answers that. How is this possible? Testing captures status at the point of time, and if the guest is incubating infection, then the test will miss it. Yes, vaccinated guests test positive for COVID and are typically asymptomatic. So he talks to what we know is going on in the world. People are out there. There are breakthrough cases where vaccinated people contract the virus. A lot of times you don't know because they're asymptomatic. One of these people could be tested, and before the virus shows up, they could get on the cruise ship. Then it's showing up on the cruise ships. He goes on to another question that a lot of people have. If you get a positive case, what happens on board? Well, it's quarantine for the COVID positive guest and testing of immediate travel party, contact tracing and testing of all contact and quarantine if possible. Repatriation home via private jet in the majority of cases. A lot of people say, how are they doing contact tracing? I don't know specifically on Royal Caribbean how they're doing contact tracing, but what I believe happened on the Celebrity Edge, I talked to a couple that was considered a close contact of a positive case, and the way that they were notified is security came up to them and said, look, we saw on the surveillance camera, we saw on the video that you had contact with this person who tested positive for more than 15 minutes. and then they isolated those folks, quarantined them, and they tested them every day. And then eventually, after they cleared testing for a few days, they were not quarantined anymore. So it does seem like, at least on Celebrity, they were using video to do contact tracing. I don't know if that's true or not for Royal Caribbean. The other thing that he says here that I like a lot, and I know this was true on our Celebrity cruise, they sent the positive cases back to the U.S. By private jet. That's what they told us on the Celebrity cruise. The person that had tested positive, they'd been flown home by private jet, and they were at home convalescing, recovering. So I like that. He moves on. How about the crew? Yes, they're all vaccinated, and the crew were tested every 2 weeks, which we just changed to testing every week because of the Delta variant. Do we have positive crew? Yes, mainly during quarantine as they join the ship and are vaccinated and tested, or during regular testing. How many? A very small number, typically 1 to 2 every week out of the thousands of crew. He goes on, maybe this is too much information. However, having a community of people vaccinated at 90 to 97% with frequent testing for all is literally one of the safest places on the planet. Guest satisfaction is high. Trust me, Michael Bailey, this is not too much information. This is information we all want to know. And then finally, he talks about the Canada situation. There does continue to be many changes or points of confusion, such as Canadian mixed vaccines, which is perfectly acceptable in Canada, yet not accepted by the CDC, and the home ports we sail from determine which authority decides. However, we continue to work with multiple authorities to find safe solutions. And so I am posting this to keep everyone informed. Please remember, we as a company are trying our absolute best to protect our guests, employees, and the communities we visit. Just a few words of commentary. I like this kind of leadership. I like this transparent leadership. Now, some people, some cynical people out there may say, oh, this is just a smokescreen, just propaganda, just to make you feel good, just to pull the wool over your eyes. Maybe so. But I like the fact that you're trying to say something and not saying anything. It's so much, look, in the absence of any kind of information, people will make up crazy information. People will infer so many things if nothing is said. Silence is sometimes the worst thing that a leader can do, because anybody that's looking to that leader for information will just make up the information. Trust me. I've been in scenarios where I've worked for a leader that didn't say much, and the speculation about what was going on ran rampant. And just look at social media for the last 16 months. In the absence of information, people make up all kinds of stuff. And so personally, I like this transparency from Michael Bailey. He hits on a lot of the high notes, a lot of the questions that all of us have, and I appreciate this. But that's just my opinion. Let me kick it over to you with a couple questions. What do you think about Norwegian Cruise Line staying 100% vaccinated? And what do you think about this message from Michael Bailey? Is your favorite cruise line doing this? Do you wish they were? Or is this too much information? Is this none of our business? Leave a comment below. Thank you so much for checking out the show today. Please show your support by hitting the like button, or the next time you're streaming a series on one of these streaming platforms, you're going to be missing an episode. You're going to finish episode 4 with the big cliffhanger, and the next episode is episode 6. What happened to episode 5? It's Tony with Lido, and until the next time, we'll see you on the Lido. Bye.